السلام عليكم. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى. أما بعد، اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل وألهمنا رشدنا يا رب العالمين. قال الله تعالى: إنما أموالكم وأولادكم فتنة. وقال تعالى في مقام آخر: يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته، أو كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. My dear respected Muslims, one of the greatest challenges that faces the world today is the challenge of raising children. Every parent is worried and concerned. Every parent is anxious. سهرت عيون ونامت أعين في أمور تكون أو لا تكون. Some parents in this worry and anxiety and concern can't sleep at night. What will happen tomorrow? The prophecies of the Rasul ﷺ are becoming manifest in front of our eyes every single day. Conditions are changing. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu says, we had barely finished and completed the burial process of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and immediately I understood and I experienced that the conditions of Madinatul Munawwara had changed. أظلمت كل شيء. Everything became dark. Everything was different. Hadith of Bukhari, one Sahabi says that إنكم لتعملون أعمالا هي أدق في أعينكم من الشعر. You do certain actions, you perpetrate certain sins, and you trivialize them, you minimalize them, you don't see it as anything big. But the reality was, in the time of the Rasul ﷺ, كنا نعدها من الموبقات. We would consider these crimes and sins as destructive. The last time I was here, approximately whatever it was, 6-7 weeks ago, we began a discussion speaking about and focusing on the rights that our children enjoy over us. And just to re-jog your memory, one of the rights was you give your child a good name, you teach your child Quran, you choose a good spouse who will be the mother of your children and the father of your children. You ensure that you show love to your children. Everyone remembers? Hasib only remembers the jokes that I say, so I'm just making sure. Nasina, thumma nasina, qad nasina, hatta nasina, nasyan mansiya. So today, inshallah, I want to speak about a few more rights that our children enjoy over us. Parenting is difficult. I have two young boys, Salih and Dawood, and every day it's a worry and concern. And one of the greatest tools you and I have as parents, when we are making a concentrated effort, I want my child to be a good human. I want my child to be a good Muslim. The greatest gift in this dunya is obedient children. The greatest gift in this dunya is obedient and good children. But sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes you're unable to inculcate within your children the morals and ethics that you would like. Fudayl ibn Iyad rahmatullahi alayhi, he was a highway robber. And that was the lifestyle that he lived. And one day he hears some ayat of Quran. أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. And as this ayah enters his ears, his heart is transformed. And he comes on to the Sirat Mustaqim. He has a son by the name of Ali. And as he's trying to do ta'deeb of his child, he's trying to nurture his child. We're living in the Western world. There's different challenges our children are going to face or are facing. And after exhausting everything he could have done, Fudayl ibn Iyad rahmatullahi alayhi teaches you and I that the greatest single most powerful tool every father has, every mother has, is you raise your hands in dua. He exhausts himself in the tarbiyah of Ali and it's not working. Ali isn't listening. And then he raises his hands and he says, Allahumma, Allahumma, inni ijtahadtu an uaddiba aliyan, falam aqdir ala ta'dibihi. Oh Allah, every day is a struggle and I'm trying. Oh Allah, I'm trying to do the tarbiyah of my son Ali and I'm failing, Ya Allah. فَأَدِّبْهُ لِي. Oh Allah, I will continue making the effort. Oh Allah, you also now help me and aid me and assist me in doing the correct tarbiyah of my son Ali. Who did Ali become? Imam in Siyar wa A'lam min Nubala, Imam Dhahabi rahmatullahi alayhi, when he writes and pens down the biographers of the pious people of the past, he says as a consequence of that supplication of that father, who raised his hands and his heart was broken, who raised his hands and his morale was defeated. As a result and consequence of that supplication, Ali was min kibar al-awliya, كان خانتا خاشعا لله. The life of Ali bin Fudayl bin Iyad changed so much that if you were to recite Surah Haqqa in his presence, if you were to recite Surah Qari'ah in his presence, wherein Allah portrays the picture of Qiyamah, it was impossible that you complete the surah except that you would find Ali bin Fudayl bin Iyad is fallen unconscious out of the worry and the concern of the day of Qiyamah. Dua is a powerful tool every single parent has. Before the child is even conceived, Zakaria alayhi salatu wasalam makes a dua to Allah. هَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ ذُرِّيَّةً طَيِّبَةً. Oh Allah, you give me amazing offspring. At the time of birth, the mother of Maryam makes a dua. إِنِّي أُعِيذُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. We will make an effort on our children. But what's muqaddar? It's muqaddar. Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam made an effort on his child. Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam was tested through his children. But when you and I understand Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, in his time, the prevalent sin that people were engaging in was worshipping the idols. So he raises his hands and he says, Oh Allah, وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. Oh Allah, you protect me and my children from worshipping the idols. The idol in the life of our children may be alcohol. The idol may take the form of drugs. The idol may take the form of gambling. The idol may take the form of haram, illicit relationships. Wherever it is, oh Allah, this idol that is affecting my child, oh Allah, this calamity that's affecting my child, as a consequence of the dua and the worry and the concern of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, oh Allah, make my children individuals, muqim as-salati wa min dhurriyyati, make them people who uphold their salah. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, his name was Muhammad bin Ismail. His brother's name was Ahmed. The father understood the importance of beautiful names. There was a person in somewhere in Africa, we met him many years ago, and we asked him, what's your name? He said, I am Muhammad al-Ashir. So we were confused. What does Muhammad al-Ashir mean? He said, I am Muhammad and I am the 10th. My entire family, all of my 9 brothers are also named Muhammad. Ibn al-Jazari rahmatullahi alayhi, what was his name? Muhammad bin Muhammad bin Muhammad. And like I mentioned last time, today, the moment someone keeps a name in the family, it's like it's haram for me to now keep that same name. So Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, his father was a very pious man. He was in tijara and business. And he was very, very careful to ensure that my earnings are halal, because he understood that will directly impact the upbringing of my children. It will impact the upbringing of my children. So he goes to Hajj, he studies by Imam Malik bin Anas, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, and whilst Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi was still a young boy, he passes on. And now the responsibility of the tarbiyah of those of Imam Bukhari and his brother fell upon the shoulders of the mother. Imam Bukhari at a young age loses his eyesight. And the mother is concerned. The mother's worried. How will my child connect with the world? How will my child acquire ilm and knowledge? How will my child be able to move on in life if he's unable to see? And every night she would make dua. Every night she would make dua for her son, Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. And one night she goes to sleep. Like I said, سهرت عيون ونامت أعين في أمور تكون أو لا تكون. She retires to bed. She spent the night in supplication. She falls asleep. And as she sees a dream, and in that dream she sees Ibrahim Khalilullah, and he informs her that the eyesight of your son has been restored. The time of Salatul Fajr comes. She wakes up her son, and lo and behold, she sees that the eyesight of her son had been restored. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam teaches us 3 du'as that will very readily be accepted. Number 1 is the dua of the parent for that child. The way a good dua has a great chance of being accepted, as parents we have to also be very careful. My child done something that upset me. I have to control my tongue. I can't make a dua against my child. Because if it's a moment of ijabah, a moment of acceptance, and that dua is accepted. Imam Zamakhshari rahmatullahi alayhi, he lost his leg. So someone asked him, oh Imam, what happened? Why did you lose your leg? He was a great scholar of tafsir. So he says, one day something happened. Time doesn't permit to go into the details. But he says, one day something happened, and my mother was so overwhelmed by the incident that transpired that she made a dua that may Allah make you lose your leg. You know, like in the Indian and Desi background, where someone does something, tu jahannam jayega. Harami, tu aisa hai, you're going to be destroyed, tu jahannami hai. If that's a moment of ijabah, as a parent, I have to be worried. I've noticed, Allah knows best, amongst the Arabs, generally when they're angry, they make dua. For the most part, hayyak Allah, they probably have their own swear words and things like that. But for the most part, hayyak Allah, aslahak Allah, they make dua even in moments of anger. Because the dua of the parent is very, very powerful. Another right of the child over us is you and I learn to connect with our children. You and I learn to be accessible to our children. Hadith narrated by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad. A young boy, جاء فتى شاب إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. A young boy comes to the Rasul صلى الله عليه وسلم and he says, Ya Rasulullah, I have a question and a request. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam opens up the floor and he asks him, oh my boy, what's the question? He says, Ya Rasulallah, i'dhan li bizina. Oh, Ya Rasul, oh Prophet of Allah, give me permission to carry out zina. Now take a moment as a parent, as a father, as a mother. If my child came to me and said, Dad, there's a party on Friday night, I'm trying to get lit, can you allow me to do zina? Or your child said, Dad, there's something happening, I want to get drunk, give me permission. Or I want to get high, give me permission. As a parent, you'd say, Habibi, you want to get high? You want to enjoy your party? You'd send them one way to get back home. But the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sahaba around him were ready to jump on the man. فَزَجَرُوهُ. And they started to rebuke him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, hold on a minute. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, hold on a minute. In one incident, another incident that took place, we'll come back to this. Abu Mahdura, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is returning from Hunayn to Madinatul Munawwarah. And as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is returning from Hunayn to Madinatul Munawwarah, close to Medina, they stop to perform salah. And as they're performing salah, there's a group of young boys. And as the mu'adhin calls the adhan, like young boys, they start to ridicule and mock the mu'adhin and they start to imitate him. After the salah is concluded, the Rasul ﷺ goes to these young men. He doesn't shout at them, he doesn't scream at them, but he asks them who was the one that was imitating the mu'adhin. So Abu Mahdura, the young boy, says, فَأَشَارُوا إِلَيَّ. Immediately they snitched on me, they said it was him, it wasn't us. So Rasulullah ﷺ calls Abu Mahdura close, he sends the other boys away. This is the way you do islah. When you want to rectify someone, you want to rectify your own child, a child of the community, don't embarrass them. The moment you embarrass them, that embarrassment will breed rebelliousness. Rasulullah ﷺ sends the other boys away and he calls this Abu Mahdura close. He says, Abu Mahdura, look at the way the Rasul unlocked potential in people he saw. Even though the individual had mocked the adhan, which is a shi'ar of the deen of Islam. Rasulullah says, your voice is beautiful. I will say the adhan and I want you to repeat after me. So he says the adhan, the Rasul ﷺ. Unfortunately, today sometimes we're too quick to judge. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh, in his khilafah, he's taken a stroll through Madinatul Munawwarah. He has with him Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anh. And as they're traveling through Medina, Umar radiallahu anh hears someone singing. And as he gets closer, he hears that the voices are getting louder. And he sees a hole in the wall and he peeks through the hole in the wall and he sees an elderly Sahabi. And the elderly Sahabi is drinking alcohol and he has women around him that are singing. Umar radiallahu anh, he scales the wall, he leaves Abdullah bin Mas'ud, doesn't even tell him where he's going. He scales the wall and enters the home. And he sees this elderly man. And Umar radiallahu anh, everyone knows Umar radiallahu anh was Umar. So he starts to rebuke him. You're an elderly man. You're halfway on your way to the grave, to the qabr, and you're engaging in haram. And the man says to him, O Amirul Mu'mineen, I committed one sin and one wrong. O Amirul Mu'mineen, you committed 3 wrongs. You spied on me, you looked for my faults, and you entered my home without my permission. Umar radiallahu anh lowers his head. He understands his mistake and he leaves. For 1 month thereafter, Umar radiallahu anhu says, I never saw this man. He disappeared from the masjid. If you and I cannot become ambassadors of deen by Allah, don't ever become an obstacle of deen. I had friends when I was growing up. I was telling some of the brothers the other day, a young man accepted Islam, probably 16, 17 years old. He had some tattoos on his body. His trousers were a bit lower than they should have been. When he walked into my local masjid in East London, the way people looked at him, the way people treated him, the way people spoke down at him, by the qasam of Allah, when I exited from that masjid, he said, by Allah, I'm never returning to this masjid ever again. When Umar radiallahu anh saw in 1 month this man isn't coming, he was concerned. When youth are not attending the masjid, the children of the ummah of the Rasul are not coming to the masjid, that should concern me. Don't write them off. Don't say and don't think I saw him there and I saw her there. She never had the hijab and he was smoking drugs. Umar radiallahu anh is concerned on a Friday, on the day of Jumu'ah. He sees an elderly man enters and his face, his head is covered. So Umar radiallahu anh asked one of the Sahaba who were close, go and inquire, who is that? So they say to him, oh, Umar is Fulan ibn Fulan. Umar radiallahu anh immediately recalls the incident that had taken place. And he says, Udnu minni. The man comes close. He says, Udnu minni udhunak. He wanted to inform him about something, but he never wanted everyone to hear. He says, bring your ear close to me. And then he whispers into his ear, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ مُحَمَّدًا بِالْحَقِّ. By the qasam of Allah. By the qasam of Allah, ما أخبرت بها أحدا من الناس ما رأيت ولا عبد الله ibn Mas'ud. By the qasam of Allah, what I saw you doing that night, I haven't told anyone. Even Abdullah bin Mas'ud, who was with me on that night, doesn't know what I saw you were doing. The concern for the children of the ummah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I think, and I ponder, every one of us has made mistakes. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees Abu Mahdura got a beautiful voice. He says, repeat after me. And as he says the adhan, the young boy responds and he imitates what the Rasul is saying. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam takes his hands and he passes it over his head and his body. He says, the moment the Rasul passed his hand over my head, internally something changed. He says internally something changed and immediately I wanted to become a Muslim. The Rasul became ahabbun nasi ilay. He says, Ya Rasulullah, O Muhammad ibn Abdullah, I want to accept the deen of Islam. And he says the kalima la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So the Sahabi comes, Ya Rasulullah, give me permission for zina. Again, how would you respond and how would I respond? What would our initial response be to such a question? Would we feel like I failed as a father? Would I feel like I failed as a mother? Because the Rasul, who was the greatest of humans, never felt that he had failed. Sahaba were real people. So then the Rasul calls him close and he explains to him in a beautiful way. Those days where maybe our parents told us, you don't pray, you go Jahannam. You don't wear the hijab, you go Jahannam. Those days are gone. Now our children will question us why. And don't get offended if your child wants to understand deen. Be happy. Unfortunately, sometimes, and I can speak for the subcontinent, we get upset. Parents don't like this question. Why are you questioning? The child wants to build a connection with their Allah. Open the door and introduce them. Who is Allah? This was the way of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Abu Mahdura, the Sahabi, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam brings him close and he explains to him. There was an incident of a grandfather. And he was in his farm and he had a young grandson. And he would tell his grandson, recite the Quran. And he would recite the Quran every morning. And every morning the child would recite with him. After a few days, the grandson comes and he says to his granddad, that I don't even understand what I'm reading, so I don't see any benefit. Our children sometimes may say, Baba, I don't understand what I'm reading. What's the benefit? At that moment, capitalize on the opportunity to educate your child. Sometimes the form of education will differ. The Rasul ﷺ was bu'ithtu mu'alliman, a teacher. He exhausted different ways and methodologies of teaching. So then the Rasul, this grandfather, he tells his boy, okay, I will explain to you by way of example. Take this bucket, go to the lake, fill it with water and bring me a bucket full of water. So the young boy, the grandson, takes the bucket, he runs to the lake, he fills it with water, and as he's running back to his grandfather, there's holes at the bottom of that bucket, and by the time he reaches his grandfather, the bucket is empty. So he says to his granddad, look, there's holes. He says, run faster. So he goes a second time. He comes back, the bucket's empty. He says, run faster. He goes a third time. He comes back and the bucket is empty. And then the grandfather tells him, my boy, you may see this as a trivial exercise. The water remaining in the bucket is you understanding the Quran. Even though the water never remained in the bucket, even though you never understood the kalam of your Allah, that same bucket which was very dirty, the first time you took it, now look at it and appreciate how clean it's become. Even if though you may not understand the Quran, at that young age of 5, 6, 7, there's an internal cleansing that's taking place. The grandson looks at the grandfather and he says, now I understand why I need to recite the Quran. So the Rasul ﷺ calls this young boy close and tells him, oh my boy, would you like that anyone do zina with your mother? He says, of course not, Ya Rasulullah. So then the Rasul teaches him beautifully, without shouting. Yes, of course, there are definitely times where you will have to be a bit more harsh in your discipline. The Rasul ﷺ said, encourage your children to pray when they're 7, and at the age of 10, maybe you also need to fadribuhum. You may need to harshly discipline them. So there is that element of tarbiyah. But on this occasion, the Rasul ﷺ, he tells him, what about your sister? Would you enjoy anyone doing zina with your sister? He says, no, Ya Rasulullah. So then the Rasul ﷺ says, similarly, others don't want zina to be done with their sisters. And he gives him a few examples. And then the Rasul ﷺ raises his hands and he says, Allahumma ghfir dhanbah, tahhir qalbah, hassin farjah. Oh Allah, you forgive the sins of this young man. Oh Allah, you cleanse his heart. Oh Allah, you allow him to protect his modesty and his chastity. Rasulullah ﷺ was accessible. That's the point I'm making. As a parent, if you are not accessible to your children, and my child doesn't feel they are comfortable to tell me their problems, by Allah, they will find someone to tell. And the advice that person will give them may not be the best advice for them. It may not be what's in their best interest. Be accessible to your children. Laugh with your children. Play with your children. Travel with your children. Do sports with your children. The Rasul ﷺ was an individual who always understood every ummati has potential. Why are we sometimes canceling people? That youngster, he shouldn't be on on the sajjadah. He shouldn't lead salah. I saw him doing this. That person shouldn't come even close to the masjid. If that was the case, many of the people you see on the podium I wouldn't have been here today. Every one of us has made mistakes, brothers. And take a moment and think, when you made those mistakes, if people judged you, that sister who's on her journey to Allah, and that sister who's trying to wear the hijab, and sometimes she's struggling and she doesn't wear it, don't judge her. That's a child of the ummah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'll conclude with one final incident. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu. I'm probably not going to get invited again. I keep going over time. But final incident. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, he was in the khidmah of the Rasul. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sends him for a task. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sends him, he sees his boys, he sees his friends, they're playing ball. He gets busy. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes in search of Anas. Imagine you sent your child somewhere and then you come to the masjid and he's playing ball outside. The chances are you're going to scream at him in front of everyone. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Anas radiallahu anhu sees the Rasul, oh, I was supposed to be somewhere else and I'm somewhere else. And he's worried naturally. But the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Ya Unais. Unais is the ismut tasghir of Anas, and in Arabic that has a level of shafaqa, of mahabba, of compassion, of affection. Just the way the Rasul called him indicated to him that the Rasul wasn't so angry with me. And if that was you and I, Arabewakuf, Ahmak, where are you going? Where were you? And I need it done. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught you and I, as parents, make dua for your children. As parents, don't ever, and it's normal, but as a community, every child of the community is my child. And don't ever write anyone off. Don't ever judge anyone. Help people become the friends of Allah. Help people connect with Allah. The youth, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Nusirtu bish-shabab. I was helped with the youth. We make dua to Allah that those parents that are struggling with their children, Allah ease their affairs. Those children who are hurting and harming their parents, Allah allow them to see the light, and Allah allow them to see the khair and the goodness. And Allah allow every single one of us, to the best of our abilities, to fulfill the hukuk that our children have over us. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله أحمد الله رب العالمين حمد عباده الذاكرين الشاكرين وصلاة وسلاما على سيد الخلق صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، أيها الإخوة الكرام، من المعلوم أن الله تعالى ما خلق هذا الكون من عرشه إلى أرضه إلا لتوحيد الله الواحد القهار، وما أرسل الله الأنبياء والمرسلين إلا ليدعوا الناس إلى خالقهم رب السماوات ورب الأرض رب العالمين، وما شرع الجهاد إلا لإعلاء كلمة الله، وما كان الولا والبراء إلا لخالق الأكوان. فوالله لو بلغت ذنوب العباد عنان السماء وقراب الأرض لغفرها الله إن قام العبد بحق هذه الكلمة الطيبة لا إله إلا الله وطبقها على الجوارحه. قال الله تعالى في الحديث القدسي: يا ابن آدم إنك ما دعوتني ورجوتني غفرت لك على ما كان فيك ولا أبالي. يا ابن آدم لو أنك أتيتني بقراب الأرض خطايا ثم لقيتني لا تشرك بي شيئا لأتيتك بقرابها مغفرة. أيها الإخوة الكرام، من هو الله؟ من هو الله؟ فأجاب الله تعالى بنفسه: الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم إلى آخر الآية. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: من قرأ آية الكرسي في دبر كل صلاة مكتوبة لم يمنعه من دخول الجنة إلا أن يموت. من هو الله؟ فأجاب الله تعالى بنفسه: هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو، الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: إن لله 99 اسما 100 إلا واحدة، من أحصاها دخل الجنة. من هو الله؟ فيجيب الله تعالى بنفسه: قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد، لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: سورة الإخلاص تعدل ثلث القرآن. أيها الإخوة الكرام، من منا ليس في ضيقة، من منا خال من شدة، من منا سليم من مرض، من منا لا يحتاج إلى مال، كم منا يعيش في الهموم والغموم، الزوجة من جهة والأولاد من جهة والأمة من اختلاف وتنازع، ولكن هل نخلو مع الله؟ هل نخلو مع الله؟ هل نخلو مع الله؟ هل عندنا ساعة من الليل نقوم نصلي نبكي أمام الله؟ الله هو الاسم الذي إذا ما تعلق به دليل إلا أعزه، الله هو الاسم الذي إذا ما تعلق به فقير إلا أغناه، الله هو الاسم الذي تستدفع به الكروبات. وقال الشافعي رحمه الله: أنت حسبي وفيك للقلب حسب، ولحسبي إن صح لي فيك حسب، ولا أبالي متى ودادك لي صح، من الدهر ما تعرض خطب. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه مباركا عليه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد المصطفى الذي أمرنا رب العزة والجلال بطاعته والاهتمام بأمره والانتهاء عن مناهيه، كما أمرنا رب العزة والجلال بالصلاة والسلام عليه في محكم كتابه فقال: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه بررة الكرام، خصوصا على الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين، وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين، وعنا معهم بمنك وكرمك يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم ارحمنا بالقرآن العظيم واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة. اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا، وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار، واجعله لنا حجة يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعلنا من أهل القرآن، اللهم اجعلنا من أهل القرآن، اللهم اجعلنا من أهل القرآن. اللهم احفظ بلاد الحرمين الشريفين، اللهم حرر المسجد الأقصى، اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان، اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في غزة وفي سودان وفي كل مكان، اللهم اكس عاريهم وأطعم جائعهم وآمن خوفهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا. اللهم من أحييته منا فأحيه على الإسلام، ومن توفيته منا فتوفاه على الإيمان. اللهم بارك لنا في رجب وشعبان وبلغنا رمضان، اللهم بلغنا رمضان، اللهم بلغنا رمضان. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. أقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
سووا صفوفكم وسدوا الخلل. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين فاصدع بما تؤمر وأعرض عن المشركين إنا كفيناك المستهزئين الذين يجعلون مع الله إلها آخر فسوف يعلمون ولقد نعلم أنك يضيق صدرك بما يقولون فسبح بحمد ربك وكن من الساجدين واعبد ربك حتى يأتيك اليقين الله سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون وأنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت فيقول رب لولا أخرتني إلى أجل قريب فأصدق وأكن من الصالحين ولن يؤخر الله نفسا إذا جاء أجلها والله خبير بما تعملون الله سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. A couple of quick announcements. Inshallah, well, first of all, we want to thank Mufti Aswad for being here. We're going to keep inviting him as long as he has availability. We want him to come here every Friday. So no ideas of him not being invited, inshallah. Secondly, Asu Salat is at 2:30. So those who want to wait, you can wait for that. Tonight, we have a special program here, MCSS, which is a local Muslim social services organization, is 25 years since it's established. Tonight, they are here to celebrate their 25th anniversary with the Worcester entire Wake community. So please bring your families and join us tonight to celebrate together, inshallah. I would request the young people here to help roll the carpets and bring the tables and chairs up if they have time, inshallah. Tomorrow night, there's Youth Boys Halakha in the masjid at 7:30. Also tomorrow, there is Youth Girls Winter Outing. If you have to register to be part of it, it's for youth girls between the ages of 13 and 25. Also tonight, the family, we had a janaza here on Wednesday. Our brother Muhammad Ali, he passed away. His family will be here tonight from 5 to 7 for du'as and condolence. And then they will be here at the same time on Saturday for du'as and condolence. So please, Sunday? Yeah, Saturday. Yeah, they'll be here at the same time Saturday. So please stop by and console the family, inshallah, and make dua for them. A lot of people have asked for dua, so please make dua for all the Muslims in the world, wherever they may be, whatever problems they may be in, inshallah. Thank you. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum. A very quick, important announcement. The brothers who are helping with parking outside, they have complained to me that people are being disrespectful to them and insulting them and saying all kinds of things. Of course, that's not befitting of a Muslim, but you have to think about this. These brothers are volunteering in this cold and trying to help all of us. And so the least you could do is to say thank you to them, not abuse them. If you don't park in the right way going forward, we'll tow your cars. That, I think, we've resisted trying to do that, but it's getting to the point that if we don't do that, people may not learn their lessons. So please keep that in mind. If you park in the wrong spot, going forward, we'll tow your cars, inshallah.